So you're licensed, you get the call, you say yes, and now they say they're going to be there in 30 minutes. Pure terror is going to come over top of you. I promise. You're going to question everything that you can imagine. You're going to question, are you good enough? Are we really prepared to do this? And that is completely normal. So understand that as soon as they say yes, they're coming, your stress level is going to go from moderate to high in a matter of a heartbeat. And that is normal. So the kids are going to show up. They show up on your front door, and more than likely they're going to show up with they might show up with a little bit of clothing, but probably, unless they were in another placement before that, they're going to show up with basically nothing. And so you're going to have to get clothes and shoes, and you're going to get coats and hats and all of that wonderful stuff. And you don't know how big or how little these kids are going to get. So a lot of people try to prepare. If you want to prepare, just understand you're going to have to buy a gambit of clothes as far as sizes and so on. So this is where you're going to really need to rely on your village, because your village is going to know all of the places where you can get clothes, where you can get hats and shoes, and all those organizations that do that. They also might have some clothes that you can use temporarily. Now, in most states, you're going to get a voucher to buy new clothes, new shoes, jackets, coats, hats, all that wonderful stuff. But that typically takes 2, 3, sometimes 4 days, 5 days before you receive that voucher. And a lot of times you can't just go and buy it and put it on your credit card, because it's a voucher that the store receives, and then the store it has a process to get the money from the state. And so if you run out and buy it all with your credit card, that's great, but there's a real possibility that it's going to be a real pain to get reimbursed for that. So just know that you're going to need your village. So look, these kids are going to show up. If they're, I would say, 3 and above, maybe 2 and above, they are going to walk in your door and they are going to be petrified. They're going to be scared beyond belief. I cannot describe what the look of a child is when they walk through our front door. It is really a look of, what in the world just happened? Why am I here? How long am I going to be here? Are these people going to eat me? Are they going to hurt me? Are they going to be mean to me? I mean, there's a whole host of things. So one of the people from the county, a social worker, will come with the kids. You will sign all the documents. So one of the things that when you receive a child, you basically take, in a sense, temporary custody. It's the county/state actually has custody. They're giving you a custody under their authority. So you don't truly have custody, but you do, in a way, you have custody. And so you can make medical decisions and things of that nature. And so obviously you have to get approval for all of that stuff and so on and so forth, but you're going to be able to take your kid to the doctor. So you're going to fill out all this paperwork, and they're going to give copies of that. And that's really important, because when you go to the doctor, and when you go to the dentist, and when you go to the school, and when you go to all these places that you require their services, they're going to need proof that you have the right to do whatever you're asking to do. And that paperwork is basically going to say you have the right to do this stuff. And so they're going to walk in your front door. They're going to be scared to death. And about a half hour later, the social workers are going to leave, and you are on your own. And that's the harsh reality. And so I'm going to break this up into a bunch of segments, and I'm going to treat each segment differently. I'm going to make a bunch of different videos about this, because there's so many things that happen. So here's the tough part. Let me just talk about our first real placement. So our first real placement showed up, and they were scared, and we introduced ourselves. So my wife introduced herself, and I introduced myself, and our youngest daughter was here, and she was 6 at the time. And so Lainey, our youngest daughter, had been waiting since May. This is now December, a couple days before Christmas, honestly. And you know, she'd been waiting forever to get a placement, and so she was just excited as beyond belief. I was really scared. I was nervous I would say something wrong. Katie was trying not to show too much excitement. And so one of the things that we decided to do was we allowed our 6-year-old daughter to give a tour of the house. Now, you may or may not have that opportunity, but I will tell you that was a really brilliant thing that we did, and we didn't even know how great it was. And part of the reason why is because what Lainey did is Lainey took them around the house and showed them where their bedroom would be, showed them where the bathroom is, showed them her room and the other children in our house's rooms. She showed them where the family room was and the kitchen, and she did all of these wonderful things and that Katie and I would have done. But once she did all that, what she did is then she started showing them all of the fun things that they would like to do at our house, because she was that age. She was, she was still a kid. And so she would show them, she took them downstairs to the theater and said, here's all the movies we have, and we get more movies. And then she took them outside and said, this is where we sled ride, and this is the swing set, and here's the pool, and so on and so forth. And so they're now adopted, our now adopted girls, talk about how great that was to have Lainey give them a tour of the house. And part of the reason why is because Lainey thought like they would think, not like an adult. And so my suggestion is if you don't have anybody to help do that tour of the home, think like if you were their age, what would they want to see? And so that was step one, give them a tour of the home. And so then we took them up to their room, and we put bunk beds in, and so they were old enough that either of them could get on the top bunk, so they decided who was going to sleep on the top and who was going to sleep on the bottom. They put some of their clothes away in a dresser. They did come with some clothes, and so we allowed them to put that stuff away in their dresser. And then we said, look, take your time, get settled in, we'll be downstairs, and when you're ready, come on down, and we'd love to spend some time with you. And so we just allowed them to relax and get used to their environment. We didn't hover over them, and that's a big thing. So one of the takeaways here is yes, you're going to be excited, but give your foster child time to adapt to what's going on. Think about all that child must be processing when they show up at your home. Think about everything that's probably going through their mind, and you need to give them some time to work through that. And they're not going to work through it in a few hours. It's going to take months and months and months, but give them some time before you throw more on them. And so the next thing I did, and I don't recommend that you do this, but it was a big deal, is our girls were 11 years old. So, they were old enough to be able to make some decisions. And so the room that they were in, I said, hey, we will paint this room. What color would you like it? And they said purple. And so I went to the big box store, and I got a bunch of purple swatches, and I brought them back, and I gave them to the girls, and I said, pick one. They picked the color of purple that they wanted. That was sort of interesting because there was some disagreement going on. So we got to sort of see how they interact with each other, and who's the bossy one and who's the meek one, and it was good because we got to learn some dynamics that we didn't have to do anything. We just got to learn them. So they picked out a color, and I went and got a gallon of paint, and I came back and I painted their room. And they talk about that. That was a really big deal. And the reason why it was a really big deal is not because the room became a shade of purple. It became a big deal because I gave them some control over their lives. They had very little control, but I gave them some control. And so my next suggestion is to give your foster child, within reason, some control over what happens, because again, they feel totally out of control. Finally, the last thing that we did was we talked about what do they like to eat. Now again, they were 11 years old, so they were able to communicate with us what they like to eat. I promise you, if you get a 2-year-old that speaks or above, they're going to communicate what they like to eat. And so what we did is we said, and we implemented a new rule, and again, ours were 11 years old. We mostly take older children, so this isn't going to apply to everybody, but we implemented a new rule that day, and we put a piece of paper on the refrigerator, and as you wanted things from the grocery store, you would just add it to the list. And so we talked to the girls about, hey, you know, what kinds of foods do you like to eat? And so what they did is they went downstairs and they went through our pantry and they went through all our cabinets and they add it to the list and they add it to the list and they add it to the list and they add it to the list, because I'm white and our foster children were black, and there's no big deal, except in their culture they ate things that were very different than what we were used to eating. And so our cabinets got much more spicy and much hotter, and we had all sorts of things that we didn't eat prior to that. And so, but we wanted them to feel like home. We wanted them to feel like this was their home. So we did that, and then after we had, you know, they had gone through the pantry and written all the things that they wanted on the list, the last thing we did that day is we did a game as a family. I don't remember what we played. We might have played Uno, but we allowed them to pick the game. I don't remember. And part of it is to help them interact with the rest of the members of the family, and so that everybody could start to learn personalities, and that was a great way. Now, the good news for us is I have highly competitive kids, and it turns out they were highly competitive. So they fit right in right away. But, you know, that was good to learn right off the bat, and so we played a game. So for us, that was day one. And yeah, we didn't get a lot of accomplished, but I'm going to tell you that when Katie and I put our heads on the pillow that night, we were exhausted and we fell asleep immediately. And part of the reason why is because that first day is mentally draining. I mean, mentally draining. So that's where I'm going to end this video, is day one. So part two, we're going to pick up on day two, what we did on day two, and go from there. So again, if you want to continue to see more about the first 2 weeks of having a foster child, please tune in to day two.